Hi, I'm thrilled to be here to talk about Gen AI. Um, we are a research firm for some of you that may not have heard of Everest Group. We track all kinds of markets when it relates to services and technologies, from business process services to engineering services, IT services, and technologies that enable those services to run better. Obviously, generative AI is the hot topic of the day. Um, there is text on this screen, but it doesn't look like it's showing up for some reason. Um, but that's okay. I'll wing it for the time being. Um, so as a research firm, we talk to all kinds of stakeholders in the marketplace. We talk to providers, we talk to enterprises and buyers of the services and the technologies. We talk to industry associations um, and investors and consulting firms, advisors in this space. And one of the prevailing questions that we get is generative AI hype or is it reality? And I think it's a little bit of both, right? Being in San Francisco, you guys have been in the forefront of technology advances, have seen multiple waves of technology disruption come through. Um, I would say that generative AI is different from previous waves of disruptions in one really critical way. And that is that it's a pull from the marketplace. If you think about things like blockchain or even RPA, um, those are things that people felt were done onto them, not things that they really want for themselves, right? So if you think back upon 2022 when ChatGPT went viral, organizations were basically caught off guard. They were already behind the moment it went viral because people started using it, right? In their daily lives, they started using it at work. And because it's just so easy and fundamentally easy to use, and it made their lives easier um, and more entertaining at the end of the day as well. And for that single most factor alone, I would say it is worthy of the hype. We really do believe that generative AI is here to stay. The issue is, when is it really going to be taking off? There's a lot of use cases being identified. There's a lot of pilots. There are some of those pilots are moving into production. We really think that as far as kind of not working. That's okay. There we go. Okay. Um, so um, so we really think that generative AI is here to stay, right? We think that there is it's a technology that has a huge, wide range of broad-based impact, and it's here to stay. The other kind of key theme that I'll be touching on in this very short talk is that generative AI is going to be, incorporated into existing tools and future tools and solutions to make sure that those become more value adding. Um, Adoption itself will grow gradually over the next 12 to 18 months, but we really do think that the impact is going to exercise more of a hockey stick type of effect, right? So the short term, the early adopters are going to be testing things out. The regulators are going to start catching up and so forth. But once cost Cost is a really big issue. So the cost profile is a little bit prohibitive right now for large scale adoption. But at some point, all of those issues are going to be sorted out. And once that happens, then there's going to be scaled solutions. There's going to be widespread adoption. So that it's going to have that more of a hockey stick type of effect. I mentioned about pilots, lots of pilots being done. There's a certain fatigue that's setting in. I think companies are moving from wanting to know where can it be used to wanting to know where has it been used and where has it actually delivered value. And then the last kind of point that I'll touch upon is how it's going to have a broad-based impact on talent and workforce going forward. So as a research firm, we have data, lots of data. One of the things that I mentioned about it being a pull from the marketplace is that consumers themselves, people in your everyday lives, you're already using generative AI, right? So when we ask consumers where they would be willing to share certain things like personal data in relation to some of the benefits that they could get back from it. These are some of the examples. We have much more examples than these, but there's an obvious openness and willingness of consumers to share certain pieces of personal data if they're going to get something from it, right? So in the cases of customer support and getting their problems resolved, sure, they're going to want to share that information so that they can get their problems fixed faster. There is, however, a really big difference in terms of openness and acceptance when it comes to whether they view you as an organization as a trusted brand, right? And one of the prevailing themes that I think we're going to be talking about here today is data privacy, compliance, the responsible use of generative AI. And so, as a favorite or a trusted brand, consumers are much more likely to opt in to share information, to be able to get better services, to get better ads, to get better offers, right? When you're looking at, there's a scale there. Just trust me on that. But when you're looking at different industry sectors, there is a difference as well in terms of consumer acceptance of generative AI. So if you the position of the orange dots indicate if it's further to the right, there's a higher acceptance, whereas more to the left, there's less. So, from a BFSI standpoint, usually that sector is a forefront in technology advances, and certainly the consumers are saying, if you can provide me more personalized financial advice, if you can give me more better recommendations on investments, money saving tips, and so forth, then I'd be happy to share my information with you. Retail, similar factors. If there's uses around creating your own personal avatar and trying on clothes before you actually have to buy them. That seems pretty cool to me. Not having to go into a dressing room and be disappointed. You could just be disappointed on your computer. But there are kind of wide-ranging uses if you can demonstrate that benefit and that value to the consumers. Certainly, when you're taking a look at the market, right? The market has started accounting for the impact of generative AI in the valuation of companies, such as some of these BPS, or what we call business process services providers, right? From when ChatGPT was announced by OpenAI to March of 2024, when this slide was done, there's been a dip in the valuation because business process services are done by people, and there's a widespread recognition that generative AI is going to not necessarily make people redundant across the board, but they're certainly going to make people more productive and more effective in the work that they do, right? So it's not a surprise then that the biggest hit organizations are going to be in the CXM or customer experience management contact center kind of area, where you see teleperformance, Concentrix, TaskUs, and so forth. They're being hit quite substantially at the moment. They haven't helped themselves necessarily. I think Teleperformance in their early stages talked about a pilot that they did in the Philippines and how that resulted in 30% um, savings and efficiencies. And that was last year sometime. And certainly, um, that they're trying to change the narrative a little bit now. However, that being said, it is recognized that there is that type of large impact, and I'll share a little bit of data around that. So, if you take a look at contact center spend, right? When you look at contact center spend, it's going to be split into voice and non-voice. So the first type of impact for generative AI is going to be actually the mix of interactions that can be supported by voice versus non-voice. There's going to be more non-voice that could be supported, and therefore there's going to be savings driven from that because non-voice is cheaper to deliver than voice. Um, However, there's also efficiencies and productivity improvements in terms of helping agents themselves get more productive. So there's going to be an additional productivity gain that's going to be realized in year one. Looking forward into year two and year three, we're saying that even if um, volumes go up, interaction volumes go up, you will still see more and more gains because the adoption of generative AI is going to increase and the cost of generative AI is going to decrease, right? So if you take a market such as contact center and we look at outsourced contact center spend, we've been estimating that the market size for outsourced contact center spend is roughly around just over $100 billion globally, right? Um, if you take a look at so the missing components, by the way, is digital CXM. There's traditional CXM where it's more measured by people, and digital CXM, which is people plus tech, right? So that 105 is digital plus traditional people. Over time, there's going to be some increases of additional services that could be offered. So that's the green area. The productivity gain is going to more than offset that. There might be some new opportunities that generative AI can create. And certainly by over a 3-year kind of time horizon, we actually think that the spend in outsourced contact center is going to decline, right? And that hasn't actually ever really happened. Even in COVID, that hasn't really happened. But that decline is going to lead to opportunities. There's going to be winners. There's going to be losers um, as these things go. Whenever there's any kind of disruption, and certainly the mix between digital CXM and traditional CXM is going to shift by 2026. There's a much higher percentage of digital compared to the people. So, where's generative AI going to be used? It's going to be used in a lot of existing solutions and technologies, analytics, some of the automation, conversational AI, cloud-based contact centers. It's really going to be driving growth across all of these existing digital levers, right? One of the things that I've realized when speaking to people as well is that there's large scale confusion about what generative AI is. I think the people in the room are all very well educated and versed with it, but if you talk to other people, they'll say generative AI are things that actually aren't really generative AI. It's either traditional AI or even automation or even just a process efficiency. um, so but what generative AI has done is it has elevated the conversation into a realm where the C suite is paying attention, and therefore there's investment that is willing to be made in driving further technology improvements, maybe not even specifically in generative AI, but in other technologies, if those are better solutions for the problems that are being solved for. Um, a lot of enterprises that we're talking to say that they're pretty ready for the generative AI disruption. They feel like they have adequate computing power. They feel like they have the ability to scale. But one of the areas that they do need support from is actually in their data readiness, right? And that involves having adequate training data. It involves actually helping manage all the data leakage and cybersecurity concerns that might come through. Um, so while there is really great enthusiasm when it comes to generative AI, there are still significant concerns that need to be surfaced. Later in the day, I think there's going to be some legal experts that will be talking about some of the data security and privacy and also compliance issues. And that is also, it does echo as well from a consumer standpoint what they're concerned about, because they are concerned about the ethical use of their own data, the identity theft, and so forth. I'm flipping through the slides a bit quickly because I only have 2 minutes left. But happy to share these slides. I know some people are taking pictures and stuff. I'm happy to share the slides afterwards with the people here. But one of the things that I was mentioning is that a large number of companies are already experimenting with generative AI, right? But there is a pilot fatigue. They want to see scalable solutions in production, and there are some use cases. We're showing a BFSI use case slide here, coaching for relationship managers, customer transaction classification, Gen AI assistance, and so forth. And we actually have corresponding use case information in terms of where there are use cases nearing production in other spaces like finance and accounting, or HR, or even procurement, or healthcare. Um, from a talent standpoint, I just wanted to recognize that there's a really big demand for people with Gen AI expertise, but that actually isn't necessarily limited to people with tech skills, right? People with domain expertise in terms of how to use generative AI in their spaces, and then legal experts, compliance experts. More and more, that type of skill set is going to be needed in cross-functional teams as far as the ability to be able to scale generative AI. And then finally, what I wanted to mention is that point um, that there's all kinds of work that is being done to be able to um, take the necessary steps to be responsible when it comes to generative AI implementation. And that's going to involve more legal involvement, compliance involvement, auditing of Gen AI, um, uh, actually accountability and holding your providers accountable for the use, and there's a lot of work already as well in terms of the consortiums that are being formed to kind of deal with some of these challenges. So that's a really quick, high-level airplane overview of where we see the market going for generative AI. Happy to share the slides afterwards, and during breaks, feel free to come up and grab me.